Welcome to Chemistry 2046. My name is Horvath. I expect most, if not all of you, know that. And I expect you've also heard a lot of interesting stories about this class. True, isn't it? If you're here to learn chemistry, you're in the right place. And if you're not here to learn chemistry, you're in the wrong place. But I'm going to take it for granted that you're all in the right place. After all, you registered for this gathering. So I consider some positive intent underlied that action. First business. Did you get a syllabus for the course? Got to have this. If you didn't get it, come and get it right now. And if you are also in laboratory, which I expect most of you are, 46 laboratory, come and get a syllabus for laboratory. I want a show of hands from those of you who are not in laboratory this term. All right, and that's not a whole lot. Let me remind those of you who just raised your hands. I will, on occasion, present material that relates directly to laboratory work. And it's material for which you will be responsible. Because what we do in this class, coupled with the information in our class notes, that's the course. That is the course. That includes what goes on during Tuesday discussion class gatherings, which generally function as extensions of lecture presentation. So keep in mind, if you miss Tuesday discussion class, it's just like missing lecture. And that's fatal. And we don't want that to happen to you. I want you all to be eminently successful. But there's only one way you can, in fact, be eminently successful, and that's do what I tell you. Well, the first thing I'm telling you is that class participation and attendance is mandatory. Without that, you cannot succeed. Not in this gathering. Because as I said, what goes on in class plus the information in Chem Notes, that's the course. If you try to get at this material by studying from some textbook, you have no chance. Unless the textbook you're studying is our Chem Notes. So keep that in mind, please. Now, for those of you, again, who are not registered for laboratory this term, when I talk about material from laboratory, I will talk about it to the extent that you need not be at the same time in laboratory. You need not be in laboratory this term in order to get at what I want you to get at. I will talk about it to that detail and extent in class. After all, chemistry is a laboratory science. And I try to get my lecture colleagues here to realize lecture and laboratory has to be interwoven. That way you see what chemistry is really about. Now I don't know how much time, if any, the 2045 lecturers with whom you were with last term spent time talking about ongoing laboratory work, given that most, if not all of you, were in 2045 laboratory last term. I have no control over that. But when I teach 45, what goes on in 45L is an integral part of what I do in lecture class. Just like now that you're in 46 lecture with me, what goes on in 46L is an integral part of this gathering. That way you really see what chemistry is about. And after all, I'm sure you recognize I wrote the laboratory book. I wrote it for you. I wrote it to support your chances, your opportunities to learn chemistry. Chemistry is marvelous. Chemistry is such an integral part of life that if you have not recognized such yet, You cannot escape from chemistry. Chemistry does not ever escape from you. And it strikes me, as a consequence thereof, you ought to want to learn about this stuff. In particular, chemistry in water solution. You think blood is important? Sweat, tears, oceans, lakes, streams, rivers, rain, you think that's important stuff? Hell of a lot more important than gasoline, independent of the price of such. So you'll find that, practically speaking, all the chemistry we discuss this term, like all the work you do in 46 laboratory, is related to studies done on chemistry in water solvent, water solution systems, because that's where it's at. That's what life on this planet depends on. And I don't think it's unfair or unreasonable to say that's as important as any consideration we can make in science, period, forever. So that's what we do. Now then, more on some practicalities. A couple comments on the lab syllabus. As with the 45L syllabus, which you've already been familiarized with because you've already had 45L, bear in mind, laboratory classes start next week, Monday. So Monday section, check in Monday, Tuesday section, check in Tuesday, and get going, etc., etc. Notice here, the short paragraph which bears the caption, beginning the term, read carefully. Just a short way from the bottom of the first page of the syllabus for laboratory. To get started properly, answer question 1.1 on page 111 in assignment 1 before you arrive for check-in. When you look at this question, you'll realize that it invites you to prepare a set of directions which indicate how solutions which are dilute can be accurately and reliably prepared from solutions which are more concentrated. You learned in 45L, I hope, how to make dilutions. Because a lot of the work you did in 45L depended upon taking a more concentrated solution or a reagent itself and dissolving such in a solvent to make a solution at a particular concentration. In the case of dilution, you're making a solution which is at a lower concentration than that of the parent solution. You have to do that regularly in 46L, and you have to do it correctly. So the very first assignment aims at this issue. So keep in mind, when you respond to this question, which this directive is telling you, you have to do before you go to laboratory next week for your first session. Because when you're in laboratory next week for your first session, your laboratory instructor, your TA, while you're checking in, will direct you to open your laboratory manual to this page. And he or she will walk around the laboratory while you are taking care of check-in. And the TA will check to see if your response, written in indelible ink, to this question is acceptable, and if it is, you'll receive an OK, which is a permission to carry on with the experiment work. And if your response is not acceptable, you'll not get an OK. And without the OK, you are not permitted to do laboratory work, so already you'll be behind. And we don't want you to be behind. We want you to be ahead of the game. Now, normally I take time during discussion class to offer some comments on this question. But some of the people that run this university, I must say, I have no idea what the hell's going on in their minds. Whoever would choose to start a semester on a Wednesday does not know what the hell he or she's doing, period, flat. And all these lectures are on video recording, all captured on the internet for anybody in the world to see, and I hope the administrators of this university who drew up this stupid calendar see this lecture. I mean it. This is ridiculous. And then stopping the term on a Wednesday. Why in the hell don't we start it at 4 o'clock Sunday morning? That'd be just as stupid. School's supposed to start on a Monday at 8 o'clock or whatever at some time in the morning and finish on a Friday. Period. The idiots who construct this calendar, another kind and pleasant remark for the administrators who've done this, don't even realize that in fall, we have at least 5 fewer class days than we have in spring, or 4. At least 4, because of all the holidays. Do they take that into consideration when they draw up the fall calendar? Hell no! I can't possibly teach the same course when it's about 2 weeks shorter, because we have about 2 weeks fewer class meetings in the fall than we have in spring. Do they consider that? Hell no. What they're more concerned about is let's get off early so we can have more vacation time at Christmas. Nuts to that! This is an educational institution, and its purpose is to serve the needs of education. And when they do things which do not serve the needs of education, to say the least, they get people like me upset. And as you can see, I'm quite reserved about this and shy. I shelter my comments like hell. I can't wait to talk face to face and nose to nose to the idiots who do this, so I can express to them more pleasantly my sentiments about these absurd actions that they take term after term. Back to business. Course syllabus for 46L describes policies and politics by which the course operates. You know about this because you've already been in laboratory. The laboratory folks have decided, I believe, full-length jeans for both males and females are the simplest required attire to cover the legs safely. Shoes, full shoes. Not thongs, not sandals, not anything like that. And safety glasses. You know about safety glasses because you already have them from last term. So I expect that you will be ready to go when you show up next week regarding attire. I expect you'll be appropriately attired. But just as a reminder, if you show up next week to check in laboratory and you're not appropriately attired, you may well lose your laboratory space because you will not be allowed in laboratory if you do not have the appropriate attire plus the laboratory manual. So be sure you're ready to go. Otherwise, you might lose your lab space. Laboratory manual. Since we've got about 500 unused copies of the 3rd edition, you may use the 3rd edition, which we hope the supply of which will expire this term, or the new 4th edition. But you won't be able to tell which edition you're buying unless you look carefully at the bottom left of the cover, where it will say, in this case, 4th edition or 3rd edition. Either one is acceptable, but let me tell you, for those of you who are using the 3rd edition of the laboratory manual, we will present to you in laboratory, maybe next week, maybe following next week, but certainly before you need this information, handouts of the information that's from the 4th edition that you don't have in the 3rd edition, so that you folks who are using the 3rd edition can get on successfully. You won't have to pay for any of this. You won't be disenfranchised. We'll see to it that you get the information that you need to supplement the 3rd edition of the lab manual so you can get on with laboratory activities correctly. Now for the syllabus, for course, class. Office times. After I construct an office schedule or chemistry learning center schedule for our discussion instructors, then I will post such to Sockeye, our class information website, and I will also introduce to you the discussion instructor staff. I hope to do that on Monday, a week coming, since our first discussion class is not till Tuesday of next week. Text. I've already told you. Chem Notes is the text. I hate to hold up my copy because it's so jam-stuffed with my own notes and scribbles and this and that. But I see many of you already have this. That's good. Let me borrow this for a second. Thank you. This is it, without worry of all the notes falling out. Any local bookstore. The Chem Notes, as it presently stands, is adequate, but it is in need of revision. So a lot of what I do in class will be presented from a revision standpoint. That's one more reason why you need to be with us in class. But at the minimum, with the notes in your possession, You have the advantage of when you are in class, listening to discussion which supplies understanding, as opposed to scribbling notes, because you got the notes. You buy the chem notes, you got the notes. That's what I want. The notes for the whole course. I've done this purposely so that when folks like yourself are here with me, you can pay attention to what we talk about in class and get at understanding, because that's where it's at. Not instead spending your time feverishly scribbling all the stuff called notes. Now you got the notes. So the amount of stuff you have to write down will be minimized. Whereas the amount of stuff you have to understand will be maximized. Oh my. Now then, website, Absolutely Chemistry. At that website, which again is available to anybody in this universe who has a computer with internet access, you will find video recordings of all the lectures for this class gathering. You'll also find video recordings of a number of class gatherings for this 2046 course, as I've taught it previously, but I'm going to edit the website because now it's got too many terms of class, too many collections of videos from past terms. So I'm going to trim that down. But I will let you know which videos are the videos you need to look at. Or put another way, I will let you know which are the videos that correspond to the lectures that are being recorded this term. Now then, discussion section, I told you about that. Course information, I told you about that. You need to be with us all the time. And be sure you got the chem notes with you all the time in class, because if we wish to refer to a particular problem or question, that's what we're going to talk about to get at understanding. If you have the notes with you, you have the problem or question. That eliminates the need on my part to write this thing on the board. So be sure you have that with you all the time. Cell phone. During the first class, I bring this thing. I wouldn't own one of these except that my wife demanded that I have one. That way she can ring my chime anytime she wants to. Do this, yes dear. Do that, yes dear. Whatever you say, dear. Okay? And now it says I have a new voicemail. I don't give a damn about that. I'm going to turn it off. We'll check this voicemail later. Okay? I want you to please to try to remember when you come here, which means you'll probably come here, which means you likely have one of these in this classroom with you, turn the damn thing off. If this, in your possession, rings, rattles, chimes, jumps up and down, or whatever it may do to get your attention that a phone message is coming in, I have a special curative device in the back for cell phones which go off and disturb the class. The curative device has a common name. It's called sledgehammer. Believe me, when I apply sledgehammer to your cell phone, it will never ring, rattle, or disturb any time again. Can you translate this? CPO exclam? What's that mean? Cell phone off! There, how about that? That's the first thing you've learned. Okay? Back to the syllabus. Class schedule, that's a gee whiz. It indicates surely where we start. Chemical equilibrium, followed by bronzolary acid-base chemistry. That's chapter 17 in the chem notes, because I've also written chem notes for Chemistry 2045. And that terminates with chapter 16. Okay? But where we are is not determined by what you see in this syllabus. Where we are is what's determined by where we are in class. So if you're with us, you know where we are. You know what to read. You know where we're going. And if you're not with us in class, then you don't know. This will rarely tell you. Quiz dates are there. Exam dates are there. We'll talk more about that when those activities get here. top of the second page, special quizzes. I used to call these bonus quizzes. I've changed the name to special quizzes. We'll talk more about special quizzes when I develop the first one, of which there are 3 for the duration of the term. And then instructor's request. The instructor's request is simple. Please, just before class, do not approach me for any reason whatsoever. Any other time is fine, but not just before class. You will see on a regular basis I will come in here immediately following the class that's in here before us and start scrawling things on the board, which will be a lecture presentation outline. If you approach me at that time with any consideration, whatever it might be, you're likely going to derail me and get my thoughts frizzed. I don't want that. So don't talk to me then. I'm a bad, nasty guy then. Stay away from me then. I'm contagious then. But any other time's okay. And also regarding office time. Please note, for my office periods, officially scheduled Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 6. If I change that, of course, I'll let you know. But it also says at any time the office is open. Because many times during the week, given that I'm aware that you folks might want to see me for out-of-class assistance, but you can't see me during the officially scheduled office periods, my office door will be unlocked. If it is, walk in. It's an invitation to you to walk in. You don't need to ask for an appointment. You don't need to say, may I come in? Anything like that. No. Just come on in and start talking about chemistry, and I'll do what I can to assist you. Sometimes the door will be propped open, but oftentimes the door is shut but not locked, because in the warm months, it's warmer in the hall than it is in my office, and I like to keep it nice and pleasant temperature-wise in the office. And then in the cold months, it's too damn cold in the hall. And I'm a Yankee. I was born and raised in Toledo, Ohio. First time I came here was 1966. You remember that year, don't you? Went to the beach at Fort Lauderdale. That was concurrent with the time when my school in the north had spring break. When I went to the beach at Fort Lauderdale, I said, I'm coming to Florida. And by golly, I did. In 1967, I had the pleasure of joining the PhD graduate program right here at UF. This is where I got my degree, PhD. And after finishing my graduate career, I was on the faculty at Santa Fe for a while. And then in 1987, the department, out of sheer necessity, created the position which I now occupy, which means run the laboratories for general chemistry. And I told them, I'll gladly do this, but I want lecture every term also. And so here I am. And if I'm going to do things the way I want to do things, I'm going to be here for a lot more years saying, here I am, to folks just like yourself. I'm 71. If I have my way, I'll be here till I'm 171. I know one 4-letter word. There's one nasty, evil word. It's called retirement. You'll never apply that word to me. Period. You think I worked all these years to have all this fun and then give it up? Never. This course is a blast. Every time I go through this, I learn more, and as a consequence thereof, understand it better. That means I can share this stuff with you all the better and all the more penetratingly, which means you get to think more. How about that? The more you think, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more you understand. And the more you understand, the more you appreciate. And that's where it's at. Sound like fun? You're damn right. It's a lot of fun. And I hope you all see it the same way. Recognizing, on my part, that it's my job to try to impress you to the extent that you will realize how much fun this is. That's my job. And I accept this job gratefully. I love it. In any case, the rest of the stuff on the syllabus, I think, speaks for itself. Now, just for some additional fun, since, as I said, I know you've all heard a bunch of stories about me, I'll read you some accounts that students like yourself have written about me. Stories they heard before they came to this class. If you've heard any very wonderful stories, please give me a written account. You don't have to sign your name to it. So I can share this information with folks like yourself in future classes. Because I think this is great. You know, you come in here, you say, who is this guy? Well, I want you to give you a better chance to understand who this guy is. Horvath is ridiculous. Avoid his class at all costs. He's in his own world, speaks his own language. That's nearly impossible to understand. But if you can get into his mind, stay in the class. But for the other 90%, get out. He makes you buy a book of his own notes. That's chem notes. So confusing. Don't help you learn chemistry at all. Then, on the same sheet of paper, if you're looking for an easy A, you're not going to get it. That if you really want to learn the stuff, take his class. He knows the stuff. He's a genius, and his lectures are great. I don't know about the genius part, but I try hard to make the lectures as entertaining as they can be. Because if they're entertaining, I capture your interest and your attention. And then it sinks in. I like that part. It will teach me everything I need to know. Number one, the best teacher you have by far is you. And there ain't nobody who can teach you everything you need to know, including you. But I take this as a compliment, nevertheless. I heard that no one can pass your class. I like this one. Let me read you some statistics. Oh, just for fun. In my summer class, which just finished, which was a small gathering, 31 folks started, 24 folks finished. 31 folks started, 24 folks finished, because we had 2 summer 2046 classes. So I guess only the hardliners stayed with me. I don't know. But of the 24 who finished, 11 made A's. Now, you don't have to do much fancy arithmetic to figure out that's a rather astounding percentage. And of the 24 that finished, only 1 flunked, and 19 of the 24 made a B minus or higher. Hey, I'm telling you, if you do what I ask you to do, you're in good shape. So, 46, spring 09. 504 students started, 421 finished. I had 2 lecture sections that term. That's 83.5% of those who started finished. I only count who finishes. I don't count the quitters. Out of the 421 that finished, 121 A's. That's 29%. What do you want? B plus B plus A equals 253 total. That's 60%. If I add in the C's and C pluses, it rises to 370, which means 88% of that gathering made C or better. And that started with no one can pass the class. Well, there's a hell of a lot of no ones in there because it says no one can pass, and all these pass, so they must be no ones. And I can read a bunch more of this. It's not necessary. I heard if you survived the painstaking torture. Oh, by the way, regarding that, we do wish to say that I've taught this class at least 40 times on my own. And of all those times, with exception of 2 terms, that's it. So that's 38 out of 40. The most common grade that I've written on the registrar's scorecard for those who finished has been A. And I expect to do just the same thing for you folks. Because I believe you're here because you wanted to be here. Heard if you survived the painstaking torture of his class, you are prepared for the hell of putting yourself through medical school. One of my pleasures has been the number of students who have gotten into medical school and who have come back to say to me, the highest score they made on, what is this, the MCAT thing? Is that what you do? The highest score they made was on chemistry. They said, because of you. In fact, when they say, what you did, what they did chemistry-wise was nothing compared to what you did. I know I'm traveling in the right direction. Look up evil in the dictionary. See Horvath. Before I attended the first class, people told me Horvath was tough, rude, and a big jerk. One girl told me that he took a copy of the book that she had just bought and he threw it across the room. That's a lie. I kicked it across the room. I used no textbook that's commercially produced in this class because they are junk. And anybody in chemistry who wants to take me on in chemistry court about that statement, I'm here. Let's get at it. And I'll show you what I just said is true. They're junk. There are a lot of good chemistry texts, but none of them have the title General Chemistry. Those books are junk, and they will not be used in this class because they stand in the way of education. He is Satan himself. I've not heard many stories about you, Horvath, except that you're a difficult teacher. However, my impression of you during the first class was that you are a crazy version of Willy Wonka, except in love with chemistry instead of candy. Have you thought about moonlighting as an actor? I have to act. It's part of the game. If I present to you the very best lecture presentation, in 10 minutes you're all asleep, if it takes that long. I can't do that. I got to jump around, be lively and crazy like I am, like I will be every class, because this is fun. I heard you eat the souls of little children. I'm writing to you as a former Chem 2 student from your spring 2009 class. I've not had a class in which I felt I was pushed as hard to succeed or learn as much as I did when I took your chem class. In high school, I had one specific teacher who stood out to me during 4 years as the most influential person to me, and she also happened to be my chem teacher. As far as my college career, I'll never forget the influence you had on me and my attitude toward classes and overall success in general. I know that you have extremely large classes and hundreds of students come through each semester, but as one student who came into your section slightly terrified of the Professor Horvath reputation, I just wanted to express that your expectations for your students pushed me to succeed in a way that I had not done before. That's the kind of stuff I love. I thoroughly enjoyed your class, felt that I excelled with you as my professor. I was hoping that it might be possible to request a letter of recommendation from you in order to strengthen my medical school application. I truly appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you. Yeah, I wrote the letter. This is a long one. So, I'm just going to read. We'll wind this up with one last series of statements. The in-class evaluation form, which we used to use, looked like this, and I think we should still do the in-class evaluations because student response level has fallen to about 35% since it's gone online. I've also told the administration of this university that as long as you continue to make it the responsibility of the lecture faculty to provoke students to participate in the evaluation process, it's not going to work. The administration needs to make it a requirement for students to participate in evaluation because it's for your benefit. And I want the evaluation modified. I don't want the evaluation based strictly on what happens this term. I want you to come back and reevaluate me in another year or 2 years after you've left this class, so that you will at that time have had the opportunity to realize the foundation this class will lay for you when you proceed to organic or analytical. I want that. The administration turns a deaf ear to these requests. And that makes me mad as hell because I think that would make the evaluation a hell of a lot more meaningful. I want to know how good this class is for you, what it does for you. And you're not in position to judge that while you're in the class. But after a couple years, then you're in position to make a judgment that's reasonable. maybe one of these days they'll respond to me. I expect the response to be something like, shut up. It ain't going to happen. My shutting up, that ain't going to happen. In any case, on this in-class evaluation form, student wrote, well, first, questions. What personal qualities or teaching skills of the instructor contributed to the success of the course? Student response, he knows his stuff better than anyone else on the planet. Question 2, did any qualities or teaching practices of the instructor hinder the success of the course? Response, he does not realize that we do not know the material as well as him, so he teaches much far above our level. Question 3, what is your opinion of this course, including printed materials? It is the hardest class I've ever taken. I study well over 10 hours per week and seek outside tutoring assistance, and still I perform poorly. 4, add any other comments. When bad people die and go to hell, they end up in Horvath's chemistry lecture. I like that one. Now then, let's have some introductory fun with the first chapter that we tackle in Chem Notes 2, which numerically is chapter 17. Chemical equilibrium. Everything I'm going to tell you is in the notes. If you've read the notes, you will realize this as I talk. If you haven't read the notes, you will realize this after you read the notes. And if you have not yet obtained the notes, do so, because I expect that you will all have the notes by no later than this Friday's gathering. You've all heard about equilibrium. How many of you understand it? Never mind, you need a response to that. Respond to that, pardon me. Statement. Since, practically speaking, just about every reaction under appropriate conditions will achieve this condition, which is a thermodynamic condition, it becomes of great importance for chemists to understand this condition and to understand how to control it. Because if, for example, you're running a reaction where you need to produce, say, 10 pounds of product X, and you're running the reaction which converts reactants to product X, but the reaction only runs with 50% efficiency. What's that mean? That means after you start with a given quantity of reacting materials, only 50% of those materials convert to product X. And then what condition sets in? It's called equilibrium. Because equilibrium is the most stable thermodynamic state in which a reaction system can exist. That's why just about every reaction will come to this condition. Hell, it's the most stable thermodynamic state in which the system can exist. So if by this reaction you've only made 5 pounds of X rather than 10 pounds of X, you've got a problem to solve, don't you? You can go get more stuff and run the same reaction and make the other 5 pounds and add them together. But bear in mind, now you've wasted one hell of a lot of reactant materials. Boss isn't going to like that. So it's better if you can go and figure out how to design the reaction so that the reacting materials will convert to an extent that's greater than 50% to make X. That's what equilibrium is all about in general. When is equilibrium established from a kinetic standpoint? You talked about this in kinetics, I hope. when for a dynamic process, which means a reaction studied in liquid phase or vapor phase. Okay? When for a dynamic process, the rate of the forward reaction becomes exactly equal to the rate of the reverse reaction. That's when, from a kinetic standpoint, equilibrium is established. But after that, there's little connection between kinetic considerations and thermodynamic considerations in which equilibrium exists. Let's do an experiment. I've got 2 flasks. Each flask contains deionized water, each about the same volume, and each flask is the same size. This flask is open to the atmosphere. This flask has a stopper. Contained within. Now then, I feel certain that you all know that under the conditions which are with us in this room, that water liquid exerts a thermodynamic tendency to evaporate, which means that equilibrium condition can be established. Water liquid in equilibrium with water vapor. Do you think that equilibrium condition, water liquid with water vapor, exists in this atmosphere we call air? Right here and now. Let me ask this question. RH. Anybody know what RH is shorthand reference to? Relative humidity. Have you ever heard the weather folks talk about relative humidity condition of 100%? If relative humidity condition is 100%, that equilibrium condition exists. Do you think that condition exists in this air atmosphere? Are you happy that it doesn't exist in this air atmosphere? Because if that condition in this air atmosphere existed, we'd be all sitting about stewing in our own juices. Because as we perspire, this natural chemical physiological process that we all engage in, there would be no net loss of water liquid from our body surface. And we would get warm and gooey. Ooh. But the air conditioning system has 2 functions. Do you know what the 2 functions are of the air conditioning system? One is to keep the temperature at a level at which humans are commonly comfortable, usually around 73, 74 degrees. I listen to the weather folks talk about the temperature is hot. They don't even know what the hell temperature is. Material can get hot, not temperatures. Temperature's a scale. Temperature can't get hot. Temperature can't get cold. Temperature's a number. How does a number get hot? They're fun. I listen to them. Okay. But the air conditioning system, in addition to keeping the temperature at a level at which we human critters are comfortable, also keeps the relative humidity adjusted to about 65-70%, because we're also comfortable at that condition. Okay? So that condition does not exist in this air atmosphere because the air conditioning system is operating properly. So I go back to our 2 flasks. One is open to the atmosphere, one is with a stopper in it. Does that condition, equilibrium between water liquid and water vapor, does that condition exist in each flask? Does that condition exist in neither flask? Or does that condition exist in the open flask only and not the closed flask? Or does it exist in the closed flask and not the open flask? 4 possibilities. And when I present to you these possibilities, you have to vote. And I have a secret camera that records these proceedings. And you know what I do after class? I review these films that I record to capture class proceedings. And I look for those who don't vote. Because if you vote, even if you vote wrong, I know you're participating, and that's okay, because then you stand a chance to learn. But when you don't vote, that suggests to me you're not participating. And if you're not participating, you can't learn. And so when I look at these video clips of the class, and I see that you don't vote, I exact upon you a penalty. The first penalty will be, I want all your football tickets for this season. In my hand! And then I'm going to sell them for beer money. All right? 4 conditions. We'll finish today with this vote, and then we'll pick it up from this point on Friday. That equilibrium condition exists in both flasks. I want votes, and I don't want you looking around. If there's any cheating in this election, I do it. That equilibrium condition exists in neither flask. That equilibrium condition exists in the open flask only. That equilibrium condition exists, but only in the stoppered flask. Most folks voted correctly. Now then, we've recognized the equilibrium condition exists in this flask. Question: how do you measure the value for this equilibrium condition? The value to which I refer is called the equilibrium constant. And what is it that I'm talking about? You get the notes and you read it. And you'll know then what we shall be discussing at the top of next class.